I'm Dwayne Brown. Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, Sheriff's Department shows and tells its side of the story about a weekend confrontation with a runaway teenager. And San Diego is turning to something called the Veil of Darkness to shed light on claims of racial profiling by police.
And you're looking at dozens of San Diego cold cases that are now solved, but hundreds remain inactive. I'm Peggy Pico with Solving Cold Cases and how new technology is helping. Then, miles of tuna crabs wash up on San Diego beaches, why they could be a sign of a long-lasting El Niño, and how it could impact rainfall.
Makers Unite, a Gee Whiz event in Balboa Park for anyone who wants to show off something special they've been working on to share with the public. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Hi, good evening. Thanks for joining us. County Sheriff Bill Gore is defending the actions of one of his deputies who used a taser on a 13-year-old Fallbrook boy over the weekend. KPBS reporter Kenny Goldberg says a video of the incident has folks wondering whether the deputy went too far.
The teenager had been reported missing by his mother. Department officials say the deputy found him skateboarding with other kids and repeatedly asked him to get in the patrol car. The boy resisted and a struggle ensued. While they were on the ground, the boy supposedly bit the deputy. That's when the officer took out his taser and applied it to the kid's back. Sheriff Bill Gore said the use of force was appropriate. He described the teenager as out of control. But some people who've watched the video say the deputy had no business using a taser on a 13-year-old boy, especially, they say, when the deputy looked like he had the child under control. Gore says the department will review the incident. Kenny Goldberg, KPBS News.
A judge has ordered a man to stand trial in the murder of a Fallbrook family. Charles Merritt is accused of killing his business partner, his wife, and their two children. The McStay family disappeared in 2010. Their remains were found in the Mojave Desert more than 3 years later. Investigators say they found Merritt's DNA in the family's SUV. They have not talked about a possible motive in the case. State Supreme Court says California cities can require a certain percentage of affordable housing in new building projects. Today's ruling leaves affordable housing laws intact for more than 170 cities. A trade group for builders was opposing such a law in San Jose and says it's considering its legal options. California lawmakers passed a record budget but still have to work with the governor to reach a final deal. They approved a $117.5 billion spending plan. It calls for higher state spending on health care, welfare, and child care, in addition to sending billions more to public schools. Governor Brown and conservative lawmakers are worried the state won't collect as much in taxes and want to make sure the state has funds in its rainy day fund.
The budget has been agreed to by the legislature. The real challenge is going to be with the governor over some of the issues, including the issue that is of greatest importance to the Women's Caucus and, frankly, to the legislative branch, and that is reinvesting in our early care and education.
Lawmakers needed to pass a budget by midnight tonight to continue getting paid. Meteorologists say this year's El Niño could be a strong one. Peggy Pico finds out what it could mean for rainfall and fishermen in San Diego.
A recent update from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, says the El Niño forming in the South Pacific has a 90% chance of continuing through the fall. Scientists say the tuna crabs washing up on San Diego beaches could be the result of the warm water from the El Niño. Joining me with other potential impacts are my guests, NOAA's fishery research biologist Nick Wegner and marine physicist emeritus Tim Barnett with Scripps Institution of Oceanography. And Tim, remind us of what El Niño is and how it forms.
The first definition, if you wish, was given by the Peruvian fishermen over 100 years ago. They noticed the water got very warm off Peru and all the fish went away. And so this happened during the winter as a rule, Christmas time, El Nino. That's the way they came to that. Now we know that that's just a code word for a huge oscillation of the ocean atmosphere system, a natural one, that comes and goes about every 3 to 7 years.
And it's warming water temperatures, correct?
There's the warming water, that's the phase we're in now, but there is also the cold phase, which could follow this one. That's the one that you really don't want.
And what are the chances that this will be a strong El Nino this year? We're hearing that it could be, and what does that mean for in terms of rain for Southern California?
Well, first of all, we can't predict the magnitude of these things very well. All signs point to a big one. Interpret that as you wish. When you have a really big Enzo or El Nino, it rains in Southern California, torrential rains. We don't expect that probably till January, February, March if it does materialize.
Is there something in particular that would knock this off its course? Like if it's looking big, here it comes. Is there just a front that could come in? What could change that?
You know, that something like that happened last year. Nobody's explained it.
Right? That's what we were getting at. We hear this all of the time. Well, Nick, let's talk about these tuna crabs.
Sure.
For the last week, we've been seeing tuna crabs on San Diego beaches. They're not normally seen in our local waters. What's contributing to them being here? Do we know that?
Well, it probably has to do with El Nino and the warmer water. So they're typically a warmer water species. They're found off the coast of Baja California, Mexico. And during warm water years, they tend to make their way up here. So we've seen them last year and then again this year. And this year, they're washing up on the beaches.
Yeah, we're seeing them all along the beaches. Some of them are alive. They quickly die, it seems like it. What other types of marine life could we see in our waters during, let's say, an El Nino? Yeah,
so it's always very exciting for me as a biologist to see what sort of animals show up. And we get a lot of subtropical and tropical species that will make their way up here. Lots of them tend to be sport fish, so it's good for the sport fishing industry. But we see lots of yellowfin tuna, lots of dorado. We also see things, striped marlin. We actually had a blue marlin caught last year, and also wahoo, which are fish that we just don't typically see in this part of the world.
But is that a problem for our local fishes, our local fish here, and the environment here? If you're sort of getting these new species coming in? Well,
yeah, those species often get displaced. So some of our local species, which tend to be colder water species, they have a couple of options. They can kind of deal with the warmer temperature, they can go a little bit deeper, or they can move up north. And so a lot of our species, the ones that are mobile, will move up north and out of this area.
And Tim, I understand that's a problem because some of them can get stranded, right? Like if the warmer currents take them up there and then suddenly the ocean changes, the temperatures change.
The road's closed and they're in trouble. But they will make a living if you wish. Monterey Bay is a good example. You see a Garibaldi. Remember those little orange things like that?
Sure, down here in La Jolla Cove.
Yeah, right. Well, some of them get swept up into there during these warm events, and there they stay.
Okay, we're going to just have a second to touch on this, though. This thing that's being called the blob, the phenomena being called the blob. Let me ask you, Tim, what is it, and does that impact our regional weather at all?
The answer to the second question is probably not. The answer to the first question is sort of in the eye of the beholder. Whether the blob is something that's new and different, or whether it's just part of the same old game that we've seen before, is an open question, because I've seen it before.
What is it?
It's just an area of warm water that generates somewhere in the Western Pacific, and it's a huge area, and it's carried across the North Pacific Ocean by the currents. And meantime, El Nino's going on. They don't seem to care about each other very much.
I see. So we're going to have to follow up on this and keep up with the fishermen as well. Tim Barnett and Nick Wagner, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The Padres fired their longtime manager today. Bud Black was manager since 2007 and even earned the Manager of the Year title in 2010. But the Padres have an almost even win-loss record this season. They're in third place behind the Dodgers and the Giants. The team says it will look for an interim manager to finish out this season. With cell phone videos, body cameras, and federal audits, law enforcement agencies now have an unprecedented amount of data on their officers, but are they making sense of it? San Diego is turning to a new type of data analysis called the veil of darkness. KPBS reporter Megan Burks tells us they hope it will shed light on claims of racial profiling.
For more than a year, residents in some of San Diego's most heavily policed neighborhoods have been telling City Hall police racial profiling happens in San Diego. Maria Morales is one of them. She says she has no doubt that what she and her boyfriend experienced at a trolley stop was racial profiling.
We have tattoos and we're colored people, and there was, a white couple and another man that was colored with tattoos. And they harassed him. They were like, are you on parole or probation? That was the first question we heard, and I already knew. Thank goodness I'm educated to be able to be aware of these things. But they totally bypassed the white couple and then came up to us, and I already knew what to expect.
Morales says the officers asked whether she was on probation or parole.
Just because I have tattoos and because I have long dark hair and a colored skin or a certain look, that means you know nothing about me. I've never been to prison in my life. And for you to automatically assume that, it's a shaming feeling, and I refuse to live like that anymore.
But this and hundreds of similar anecdotes haven't convinced elected officials or police brass that racial profiling is a reality for the department. Instead, they've acknowledged the community's belief that profiling happens.
The message has been sent. It's very clear that members of the community have this belief that they are being targeted. And so I think the chief and the command staff are now more aware of that, more sensitive to it. So hopefully we'll see some changes if indeed some officers are profiling.
As the city's public safety chair, Councilwoman Marty Emerald has been on the receiving end of most of that testimony.
It's humiliating for that same kind of treatment.
Earlier this year, she asked a San Diego State research team to take a look at the police department's traffic stop data to gauge where the department falls between belief and reality. Morales says she's confident the findings will fall in line with her experiences.
And if a majority of people are being pulled over are black and Latinos, there is a consistency behind that, and the numbers do not lie.
So this is the driver race column. W we've coded for white drivers.
But criminologist Joshua Channon says numbers can be misleading. He says you can't just compare traffic stops to census data to figure out if people of color are being stopped more often than others. That's what SDPD has been doing with its limited resources.
This isn't the most accurate assessment of those people that are driving. There's a distinct difference between the driving population and the residency.
Researchers call this the denominator issue. Not everyone in a given area is old enough to drive or has a car, and San Diego's proximity to the border and its tourism draw mean the driving population is constantly in flux. So, when the share of black drivers stopped by police is higher than the share of black residents, it certainly looks like racial profiling, but it can't prove racial profiling. For that, researchers need a better denominator.
We plan on using a fairly new statistical technique called the veil of darkness technique. And what this technique does is it uses natural changes in light to isolate the effect of race on the likelihood that a driver will be stopped.
So let's break that down. The veil of darkness assumes two things. First, that it's more or less the same people driving on a given street at 5:30 in the evening. They're coming home from a 9 to 5 or heading out for the night shift. Second, it assumes that an officer can better observe a driver's skin color when the sun is up. So, researchers can compare traffic stop data from around 5:30 in July when it's light out to 5:30 in January when it's dark. If more people of color are pulled over in that area during the summer, one can assume race is at play.
I don't know whether the veil of darkness is going to solve all the problems here. But I think it's one of the best things out there.
We spoke with Greg Ridgway over Skype. He co-created the Veil of Darkness while studying racial profiling for the RAND Corporation. It's since guided public policy in 5 cities, including Oakland and Cincinnati.
It really gets at just simply the direct question, does the ability to see the race of the driver in advance influence which drivers the officers are going to stop? And that really gets a lot closer to the key question of racial profiling.
Channon's group will also study whether people of color are more likely to get a ticket or be searched after they're pulled over. And he'll include interviews with community members and police officers. Emerald says the city will act if the study confirms what residents have been saying.
It's a big if, and maybe the study will show that some improvements are needed. If so, I think that our police chief is ready, willing, and able to do something about it.
Maria Morales says she wishes her voice were proof enough, but she welcomes the study.
I think we're kind of like just desperate. Kind of like just give us something that will support what we're already saying.
The study results will come in 3 phases. The first is expected in late October. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
Video journalist Katie Shulov helped produce that story. You can find more about the Veil of Darkness on our website, kpbs.org. The county DA's office has solved and prosecuted 35 cold cases since 2003, but hundreds more remain unresolved. Peggy Pico has an update on what it takes to actually solve them.
Right now, there are 381 inactive cold cases in San Diego County. Joining me with what it takes to reopen, solve, and prosecute cases are my guests, Deputy District Attorney David Bost and District Attorney Investigator Tony Johnson. Now, Tony, you're a former detective sergeant with the San Diego Police Department. What qualifies as a cold case, and how does it become a cold case?
A case goes cold primarily when the initial team investigating the case has run out of leads and there's no further work to be done. At that point, they inactivate the case, it becomes cold and subject to future investigation as time permits and as resources allow.
We just see a little bit of video of the cold cases that have been solved here. David, what is the current status of cold cases in San Diego County?
Well, there's 5 that are actually active. That means they have court appearances that are waiting to be done. There's 25 that are under review. There's 35 that are actually been convictions since the cold case unit was formed in 2003. And there's about 380 that are inactive, which simply means that no one's reviewing the case right now, but it has made its way over to the district attorney's office where we can take a look at it.
What makes, David, prosecuting a cold case suspect, what makes the case so difficult?
Well, there's a number of things. One of the most important things is that witnesses either aren't available because they're deceased, their memories may fade because they're elderly, they may be more or less willing to cooperate in the investigation of the case. In a really recent case I had, the Moonlight Market case where Suleiman Halak was killed, 3 of the police officers had actually died. And so we didn't have the police officers who had done the investigation.
So you've got the time and you've got the witnesses that aren't around. Now, Tony, what does it take to, when do you say, all right, we want to reopen this case?
We're constantly reviewing the cases that we have in light of new developments in evidence technology and also developments in whether or not maybe a witness might be willing to talk now versus not so much back then. And when we think we have an opportunity to solve a case, we look at it. So it's really based on solvability.
And how about advances in fingerprint technology and DNA? How is that improving the odds? I'll start with you, Tony.
Well, DNA, obviously, everybody's familiar with. There's the DNA from body fluids, and there's also touch DNA, which has become very sensitive. Fingerprint technology has improved as far as the computer
database, right?
Databases and programs that allow automated searches.
So that's helping things. How about, do you see this in prosecuting it? Is technology helping advance the prosecution of it, or just because we're more sophisticated?
Oh, no, absolutely. There was DNA. We used to have sperm or blood or body tissue to make a comparison. Now, as Tony just mentioned, there's what's called epithelial or touch DNA, where even a skin cell that's left behind can be compared and you can identify a suspect. And everybody that's convicted of a felony now has their DNA put into a database where that can be run against the DNA that's recovered from a murder scene and see if there's any kind of match there that should be followed up on.
How can the public help when it comes to cold cases?
I think the important thing they need to know is that they're never closed. They're closed only after someone is convicted or a suspect is deceased. It's never too late to come forward. We've had cases where we literally stumble across a witness who maybe thought, well, you know, I didn't know that what I had could help you to solve this case.
Some valuable information. Now, Andrew Moore is a cold case that you would really like to solve. Tony, tell us a little bit about that.
Andrew Moore was murdered inside his apartment on 8th Avenue in September of 2000. There were no witnesses. His motorcycle was stolen and found about a month later in the area of 24th and C. There's a $50,000 reward out for any information that leads to the conviction of the perpetrators in that case. We'd love to have a lead in that case. We've been working on it for a long time. His parents are very involved. They visit from Pennsylvania every year, and we'd love to get some closure on that case.
Is there anything else that the public can do? Should they contact you? What should they do for either one of you, David? We'll start with you. What should they do if they say, hey, listen, I think I might have some information, but they don't know where to go?
Well, generally the process would be to call the police agency that's in their particular jurisdiction. Some people, of course, are in Escondido, some people are in La Mesa, some people are in the city of San Diego, others are in the sheriff's jurisdiction. And then that case will be reviewed by the police and then referred over to the district attorney's office. I'm certain Tony'd love to get calls on his case personally as well.
All right, so start there, start locally. All right, so David Boston, Tony Johnson, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tonight, J Street, the self-described political home for pro-Israeli, pro-peace Americans, is hosting a documentary exploring how the seeds of today's Middle East conflict were sown in Palestine during the Ottoman Empire. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando says it's already getting mixed reviews.
1913, Seeds of Conflict is a documentary that does not pretend to be objective, and that's according to its director, Ben Loderman.
1913, Seeds of Conflict is not a film that I would call fair or balanced. It's not fair in the sense that it's not a survey over time. It's a glimpse of one little clump of history. It's one moment. The other thing I try to do is not tell an objective, omniscient kind of history. What I want you to do is hear a cacophony and complexity of points of view, to have a little trouble following it maybe, because that's how life is and that's how history is.
The film addresses how point of view can influence our sense of history.
I mean, you have the famous image of shareholders for Achuzat Bait, which becomes Tel Aviv in 1905, standing on the sand dunes. Well, the photographer was positioned to their south, photographing them to the north, in which there were, in fact, sand dunes. Had he turned 180 degrees to photograph himself behind them, they would have seen the vast orchard groves of Christian and Muslim landowners.
The film screens tonight at Temple Soel in Cardiff and on PBS on June 30th. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Cuban evolution. We kick off a week-long series of reports from Jeffrey Brown on arts and culture in Cuba. That's Monday on the PBS NewsHour.
When school lets out and summer begins, many kids need to find ways to stave off boredom, but some need help fighting hunger. Students who normally receive a free or reduced price lunch at school can now grab a midday bite at their community library. Anna Hartman with the County Library System says kids of all economic backgrounds are welcome, but the program targets neighborhoods where the need is greatest.
For us, it's a great opportunity to really connect learning over the summer with our Summer Reading Challenge, where kids can get prizes, with providing that balanced, nutritious meal. And it's a great time for kids to just hang out with their friends.
The free meals are available at select libraries around the county and in the city of San Diego. You can find locations and schedules on our website at kpbs.org. Looks like a warming trend ahead this week in the forecast. The coolest spots are along the coast or beaches, 70s there. Warmer in the inland valleys, though, upper 80s over the next few days, and plenty of sunshine in the mountain areas, slightly warmer. Look at Wednesday. And triple digits in the desert. Check out Thursday, 112. Wow. Some describe it as a cross between a science fair and county fair. Others say it's a chance for the community to build something together. Today, we got a preview of what's in store for the fall centennial event in Balboa Park.
What this guy is a walking, talking, one-ton robotic giraffe that I built.
Hello, my name is Russell.
From Russell, the electric giraffe, to something less complex. Like a man in a makeshift wooden scissor hand suit. There will be lots of gee-whiz things to see and experience at the upcoming San Diego Makers Fair.
But this is not about commercial makers. This is about the spirit of making and sharing your ideas. And every maker who comes gets a free booth. And so we encourage everybody who has a special something they've been making and wants to share with the world to apply.
It took 30 people in various stages about 3 months to make this fancy cupcake on wheels, using a sewing machine and fabric for the top and bended sheet metal and wheels for the bottom.
I'm hoping that the kids see these cupcake cars and get really excited. The other takeaway is the community aspect, the friendship that we gained from everyone working on the same build and meeting new people that they wouldn't normally get to meet.
Maker Faire San Diego will be held the weekend of October 3rd and 4th. Mayor Kevin Faulkner and Councilman Todd Gloria even got into the act today to promote the event as part of the Balboa Park Fall Centennial Ceremony.
Our plaza will be a place of creativity, opportunity, and innovation for the world to see.
But this is what it's really about, inspiring young and old to bring ideas to life and show what's possible. The first Maker Faire launched in the San Francisco Bay Area in 2006. It was quickly followed by fairs in Austin, Detroit, and New York City, as well as others around the world. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. You have a great night.